Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Clear Lake, Iowa, and right behind me is a legendary rock and roll building, the Surf Ballroom. It is an events venue, and it has been for many years off and on, but it is best known as the last place that three rock legends, Buddy Holly, JP, the Big Bopper Richardson, and Ritchie Valens played for the very last time. It was on February 2nd, 1959, the day before the music died, as proclaimed by Don McLean. So I'm going to get up closer to the place. So this place is a museum slash venue. Many artists still perform here, like Steve Earle will be here pretty soon, Tyler Hubbard. I think he's one of the guys from Florida Georgia Line, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, him. That is an old-fashioned ticket booth. Now, this place has been restored to look modern, but also old. I mean, yeah, you can definitely, once we go in there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And here's a nice sitting area. I'm sure this wasn't here in 1959. This is just a plaque that says that it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. But it was here, again, on February 2nd, 1959, that the Winter Dance Party took place, and hundreds, I don't know what the number was. I want to say probably over 1,000. 1,000 teenagers were entertained, but weather-wise, of course, it was in the winter time, and the weather was blustery. I mean, it was cold, snowy, and the way they were getting around was by bus. And the bus was not heated. I mean, it was definitely frustrating for all the musicians that were on board, especially Buddy Holly. And Big Bopper reportedly had the flu, but that didn't stop him from performing that night. But they decided to charter a plane. Well, Buddy Holly did, because for various reasons. I mean, I'll go into more of that story in another video where I visit the crash site, but the plane was only allowed to hold 2 more people. The pilot, Buddy Holly, and Ritchie Valens and Big Bopper, of course, went on. And there's many different theories about why they boarded the plane and all that. But right here is a memorial marker in memory of the rock and roll legends. The pilot was Roger Peterson. Now, I did read somewhere he was 21 years old, and he had already been reprimanded many times for disobeying flight regulations, even though he still had his license. I'm not sure if he was the only one that was available that night, but yeah, things didn't quite work out. But the above legends played their last concert at the Surf Ballroom, Clear Lake, Iowa, on February 2nd, 1959. Their earthly life tragically ended in a plane crash 5.2 miles northwest of the Mason City Airport on February 3rd, 1959. Their music lives on. It was donated by Daryl R. Hine and family, who was the manager of the Surf Ballroom. So for all you rock and roll fans, it should be a treat for you. It definitely is for me. And the Surf Ballroom, the original intention was to give this more of a Florida beach vibe, because this is done by a lake, Clear Lake, get it? And the original load capacity was 2,100 people. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go in. All right, so I'm just now entering the legendary Surf Ballroom. I'm gonna start here on the left. And of course, the reason I'm here and why thousands of visitors come here is to check out the last place where these 3 rising stars played: Big Bopper, Ritchie Valens, and Buddy Holly. Here's an old-fashioned coat check. I don't know if it's still $1, but it says $1 per coat. But yeah, that night I'm sure this was being used because of the bad weather that night. So it says here this piano, this baby grand, has long been a part of the Surf's history. It's been used many years on stage, played by countless musicians, and Duke Ellington even signed the underside of the top board. Here it is. Here it goes. The Duke. But of course they don't want anybody playing it, and yeah, you can tell it's been through a lot of times. And here is a historical marker by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There are a few buildings in existence today that represent a complete shift in our musical history. As the last concert venue for Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the JP, the Big Bopper Richardson, the surf is the bedrock of where the sound and attitude of rock and roll change forever. And all around it are pictures from that night. That is Waylon Jennings, Tommy Alsop, those are all members of the band. That is a very young Waylon Jennings there. That is Dion. And that's Frankie Sardo on the left. Dion the Belmonts were on the bill that night, but they weren't as big as the other stars. That is Ritchie Valens, Buddy Holly, and his new band. He had already disbanded the Crickets. And then that's another picture of Buddy Holly there. That is not an actual poster, but the day the music died. And here is the National Historic Landmark plaque put up by the United States Department of the Interior, 2021. And then we go down this hallway. A little history. This was built in 1933, and then by 1947 a fire destroyed the ballroom. And it reopened a year later on July 1st, 1948, 1959. That legendary yet tragic night, 1961, a major remodeling project.
I think it looks good, yeah.
And then 2009, the Surf Ballroom was dedicated as a historic rock and roll landmark by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Landmark series recognizes locations in America significant to the origins and development of rock and roll. Only 11 locations in the United States are honored with this distinction. Now, I have visited one of them, and that's the Whiskey Go-Go out in LA. 2011, listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Here's some more history, but I'm going to skip that. Here's some really old photos. An old ticket box. Dates back to the grand opening in July 1948. These are all the big bands that have played here. Guy Lombardo, the New Year's Eve guy, Jan Garber, Tommy Dorsey.
Hello.
Man, these are just relics. The Heidi Ho guy, Cab Calloway, the Clooney sisters. One of them is George's mother, yes. Wow. Look at these old matchbooks too. Don't forget, a lot of this place probably smelled like an ashtray back in the day too, as people smoked probably a lot. I'm gonna go on the other side here. Some more photos too. Oh my gosh. These are all big bands, but still, I mean, they are a part of American music history. I mean, before rock and roll, this was what people and teenagers were dancing to. People of all ages, I should say. Wow. Some of them have autographs on too. And then when the surf was built, drawers were mounted on the booth walls beneath each table. These drawers were intended for the storage of ladies' purses, but were commonly reported as being utilized to hide bootleg liquor. Okay. Here's some teens having a good time. Alright. And as I was mentioning earlier, there was a lot of other contemporary artists that have played here since then, like the Beach Boys. That's an autographed surfboard over there. And here are some more contemporary people who have played here over the years, last 40 or 50 years, like Leon Russell, who's no longer with us. Same with Bo Diddley, B.B. King, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, Keep Your Hands to Yourself, that's right. Fats Domino, Johnny Rivers, the Everleys, Hootie and the Blowfish, Buck Cherry, whatever. Bret Michaels, White Snake, America. Sorry, no desert around here. Blue Oyster Cult, Grassroots, wow. ZZ Top even donated a guitar for this museum. That's really cool. Don McLean, George Thorogood, Peter Frampton. Buddy Guy. Martina McBride, wow. Look at all these old retro posters. Chris Christopherson, who recently passed. Even Kevin Costner. I always forget that he's also a musician. And then finally over here, talks a little bit more about Buddy Holly and the Crickets. And you know the levee ain't dry and the music didn't die because Buddy Holly lives every time we play rock and roll. That was done by Sonny Curtis. Then over there it talks more about each artist that perished in the plane crash. Like that one's Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens. And then here's something about the night 50 years later that took place February 2nd, 2009. Buddy Holly's widow was there, Ritchie Valens' family, Big Bopper's son performed, as well as Wanda Jackson, Los Lonely Boys. Wow. Must have been a really powerful night. Maybe I can find it on YouTube. There was also a 20-year thing called the Tribute to Buddy Holly concert, and Del Shannon was here, Wolfman Jack emceed the event, Jimmy Clanton, the Go Jimmy Go guy, the Drifters. Wow. And just think, the next anniversary will be, let's see, yeah, it'll be 70 years in 3 years. Wow. But the legacy of this place, as well as rock and roll history, it lives on, no matter what. So this does connect to the actual venue. And then in here is a payphone that was used by Buddy Holly to call his wife, Maria Elena, in New York, and by Ritchie Valens to call his manager, Bob Keane, in Los Angeles on the evening of February 2nd, 1959. And it looks like Maria autographed it. And it's definitely old school. For some reason, I heard that Ritchie Valens also called his mother instead of his manager, but I don't know. Well, remember, Ritchie Valens was 17, so yeah, he was not an adult yet, but I'm just saying. That's a storeroom. And now, we're going to go to the actual ballroom. Well, there's people setting up for an event tonight, but they're not going to get in the way. Yeah, check out the wooden paneling on here. And here is the stage. I'm not gonna step on stage. I don't think they'll let anybody anyway, but. And then over here is a lot of seating. Looks like a lot of big people didn't exist back then, but yeah, this is so cool. Look at all these. Imagine being a teenager in the 1950s and just sitting on these and just, you know, bobbing your heads to the music and say, you know what, if I don't want to dance, I'm just going to sit down and listen to the music and chill. Wow. I know it's part of the lighting, but, and that looks like a bar. I mean, I don't even know if a lot of the stuff even existed in 1959. The worker told me that it's changed a lot, but I'm sure there was a place like that where they can buy Cokes or alcoholic beverages. But yeah. And it looks like every booth was sponsored by either a person or a local business. I can see they installed TVs and much more modern speakers. Man, I don't know, I'm just geeking out for no reason over this. I mean, I don't know when I'll ever be back here, but yeah, this is so cool. So I was talking to another worker, and this is not the actual stage that Buddy Holly and the groups performed on. It was behind this curtain. And he says anybody can come in here and check it out. And I'm not going to sign the walls. This area historic and reserved for the artists who performed here. Fair enough. ZZ Top. Oh, hello. Watch my step. Look at this. Good golly. I mean, I could spend all day analyzing all these signatures, but okay, the Kentucky Headhunters, Trick Pony, Gallic Storm, The Ritchie Valens family. Man, so cool. I'm sure a lot of classic venues do have these, you know, kind of things where they let performers sign the walls and whatnot. Like I remember Mississippi Nights in St. Louis, they had that. And before the place was torn down, somebody took a part of the wall. Oh, here we go. Stepping into rock and roll history, man. Now remember, that room was the green room. Technical term, that's where bands could, you know, even though the room was small. And of course, here's the curtain. I mean, it's not the same curtain as it was, I'm sure. It's been replaced many times, but I'm gonna go ahead and do a little curtain intro. All right, everyone, Jason from Historically Marked. Let's give a big hand. Wow, hello, everyone. Wow, this is so awesome. All right, now I'm gonna go back behind the curtain and take a look at it, take a little bit more. I know the line is kind of weird, but wow. Like I said, I mean, I just can't help but geek out over this. I mean, for the first time I heard the story when I was a little kid from my mom. And when I saw the movies, Buddy Holly's story in La Bamba, you know, I had to make a trek up here sometime, and I'm glad I did, all the way to Clear Lake, Iowa. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, just outside the legendary Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. Signing off.